Well, good afternoon, actually, this time. I'm doing an early recording, so the lighting is better in this room. So I left off with talking about Revelation 11:14, which was Revelation 11:14. The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. Well, the second woe, I believe, was actually clarified to me, I believe. I could be wrong, but is actually those final messages. Because at that point he was basically putting out a warning that the planet was going to be recycled, and the only way to escape that recycling was to leave with them. And of course he was, as Tiendo always did, he was speaking primarily to those students that could graduate, even the ones that were outside the classroom at the time, that had been with Tiendo or Do, so recognized him and fell away from the classroom, like myself, like Carlin, like Mark and Sarah, Mercodi and Seraphodi, like Flexodi and Abelodi, like Juan Odi, like Oscar Odi, like Rick Odi, like Just Odi. I don't think I missed anybody, or I guess potentially And Odie and Hav Odie and Pam Odie and Arth Odie. So all those individuals were basically, I believe, the primary ones he was speaking to. Not that he had that in his mind exactly, but I don't know. He might have. But he wasn't going to try to list everybody individually, but he was speaking to the individuals that had been his students and had received some of his mind directly. And so they could have still been part of the first or second category of individuals to leave with them. And of course, if they were among the first, then they would have went to the southwest somewhere and laid down their bodies in the same way, if they wanted to be in the first wave. So this was actually common for Tiendo, that they always addressed the ultimate choices that we can make, the highest choices we can make, because all those individuals that were in the classroom for all that time were capable of graduating. Tiendo made that very clear, that was the case. Well, I don't know if they made exceptions. With everything, almost everything, there seems to be exceptions. So I shouldn't say that it's absolutely the case that all were capable. I was reminded that at one point Tiendo talked about how there might be some in the classroom that are first-time receivers of the next level information, like first-time deposits, and that if so, they were very advanced in that first-time deposit, to have gravitated to the classroom and to stuck with it. They didn't actually try to address, that I heard, individuals that left early on as being different from that. But they didn't say that until probably the mid-'80s, before T left, as I recall. And so, so some of those individuals, including myself, could be considered to be in what Doe called the second category or type of person that recognized their teacher, and did separate from the world to some degree, as we all did, but had weakness and shortcomings, had fallen in different ways, and so at this point found themselves outside the classroom. So they could also, like I said, leave with him by laying down their lives. So I completely agree with that. But leave with him also has a broader context when you expand it to the third category, which the second category could also qualify for, because just because you flunked the first classroom to graduate with the first fruit doesn't mean that anybody can't graduate with the second fruit. And I'm talking about anybody, not just the individuals that were with them physically. And Doe didn't go into the details of all the individuals that might qualify for those last two categories. I think maybe even actually he was talking about the third category as being even individuals that never heard of Tian Doe would actually also go with them and escape the recycling. Not that escape is the motivation. The actual motivation is recognition of the truth and feeling compelled to gravitate towards obtaining greater recognition. So there's nobody that's left behind by the next level. There's no resting on our laurels. Nobody missed the boat. We missed the first bus. Okay, but there's another bus. And that's actually quite clear in prophecy. And I believe we can count on most of the prophecy the way it was told, but of course we have to translate it, not talking about the Jesus prophecy so much, even though he referred to things that all the time that were in the book of Revelations, and also the Old Testament prophets referred to many things in the book of Revelation. So so you can see all the progress of the classroom with the documentation that was left behind. And of course, combining that with everything Tian Doe said through the years. And I tried to put all that together in the book that I just published. So, which I've already said a number of times how you can get that if you want it. For free or for free on my blog, or for purchase as an ebook for as little as $3.99, $3.99, or a soft cover for somewhere in the 30s to the 40s, depending on where you get it from. So anyway, which I don't have direct control over. I'm not selling it any place directly. Even though there's somebody selling it on eBay, they wouldn't allow me to sell it on eBay because of its content. And I went through that in the previous video, I think, as to more detail about that. So I'm not going to repeat myself in that regard. But, so the second woe to me was, Doe talking about the exit. And that was accompanied by the Hale-Bopp comet. And of course, the whole event of laying down their lives. All of that combined was both the second woe, and I also believe the seventh trumpet sounding. Okay, now a little thing about the trumpet soundings. like in Revelation, I'm going to switch over here to, there's the woes and 11. Okay, Revelation 11:15 says that, and the seventh angel sounded, and there were great voices in heaven, saying, the kingdom of this world are become see, they put in the kingdoms of our Lord, but those words in italic were added by whoever, the King James Bible people. So that's what I use, King James, in order to be closest to perhaps the closest translation, even though in the classroom we used, for the years when we started using Bibles in the 1990s, because we didn't use them before that. I mean, we had the option to look at a Bible. We had a Bible in the classroom library, but I didn't look at it. I don't know that anybody really looked at it that much, but because T&O didn't teach out of it. And so anyway, but they knew everything in it. I mean, you know, in a way that I still don't, of course, because they're the ones that produced it. So that's, you know, that's the way it is. When you're the originator, then you don't need to refer to what was written before about you, about what you said. You've got that in your computer, even though their current brain that they're using their soul is using through that vehicle doesn't necessarily have all that programming of that information on the tip of its conscious tongue. It's got it in its subconscious mind potentially, but that's got to be remembered, and that's why the next level. That's one of the reasons why the next level provides and makes sure that the core of the information that was provided by the last representative that was incarnate, Jesus, and before that Moses, or Elijah, and before that Moses, before that Enoch, and before that Adam. They make sure that it's accurate enough so that it can be used to help awaken the vehicles to the truth that the older members and the student returnee souls will be taking to go through the rest of their task of overcoming the human kingdom, outgrowing the human kingdom, evolving out of the human kingdom, graduating from the human kingdom, school. So the seventh angel, which would be seventh messenger, is most important because the seven has to do with, in the Old Testament, in the Moses camp, if they took a vow, they would repeat it to themselves 7 times, or maybe out loud. I don't remember the Old Testament that well. But 7 times in order to ingrain it. And so this was like saying that now we're at the 7th time that we're repeating the announcements, which the sounding is. It's a reverberation. It's a, let me go over here. It says it's from salpizo in the Greek, S-A-L-P-I-Z-O, to trumpet. So it's a trumpeting, sounding a blast, literally or figuratively, which are yet to sound or to sound. Doesn't mean that they're yet to sound, but I guess it has that implication, which are yet to sound, that it's in the future, that the sounding is going to take place. So that may be the case, which I hadn't thought about it exactly like that. But I'll have to bring some updates in the future if I feel like going back to decipher all the 7 soundings again, to learn more about what might have been said there. But the Greek word sal, P-I-G, big X, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but maybe I'll see it here. Salpince. No pig X there, even though it's spelled that way. And they're saying is perhaps from salos through the idea of quavering or reverberation. So it's a vibration. It's a vibration. It's a sound vibration that is being communicated to us. And we know that though, I talked about this in a previous broadcast, that Tien Do talked about how the next level communicated with us through sound waves. And we know that NASA and some of the groups that are offsets of NASA that have the radio telescopes, that they put up the big array in the plains of San Augustine, just so happens where the Roswell crash, well, it became known as the Roswell crash, actually took place, and there might have been more than one crash in that area, because I know there's some conflicting stories, but some of those conflicting stories might be part of the misinformation that was the seeds that were sown by the Luciferian space aliens through the humans to try to take away from the reality that there are beings from space that were actually among us and that were not human. They had different organ structures, didn't have a lot of the organs or some of the organs that humans have, and then did have some of the organs they had, but sometimes they were different. So, like a bigger brain, and but not a huge brain like some of them are depicted to have, which could be a mutation that was created by the Luciferian space aliens. Because the next level, you can see what their vehicles look like, and they tailored the human vehicles after their vehicles. So human vehicles you don't see having these real huge skulls that are bigger than their whole body, and eyes that are, Doe thought, I think, that those might have been uniforms, or like, and I think even Rael, or it was David Icke, one of those two, talked about in their encounters, which they had kind of abduction experiences, that the space alien that was communicating with them told one of them, or maybe both of them, that they were disguising themselves to not frighten him. So I wonder what they really looked like. I think they probably looked like shriveled up corpses. Or maybe they really did look reptilian, in a way that would have made them think that they were looking at a snake somehow, with a snake face somehow. And that's not to put down the reptilian species of animal. They're, I don't know, I don't know if that species, maybe there is a way the next level actually can attach a soul to that species so that they can't leave. And that would be a way of locking them in prison as well, right? If they can only just be around, be among the reptiles, And Tien Do did talk about how the human kingdom was like a snake pit, and they didn't like it here because it was like being in a snake pit. And so, I guess all those things, Tien Do didn't say things casually. I mean, I'm not saying they never said anything casually, but when they were giving us information, I don't believe they ever said anything casually. Although it might be in between saying things, if they thought of something that was funny about something, then they would maybe say it and you could think of it as casual. But even that, I can't take for granted that was casual. I don't have the capacity to know when they were being casual and to where it had no value. I think everything they said had value. But they didn't just talk. We didn't have like coffee clutches. In fact, he got pretty upset one time when she drove into the camp where we were all camped in the same place in the mountains north of Provo, Utah, in the snow. And she came to the camp, and a number of students were standing around a campfire, and they had cups in their hands. The cups probably had just water in them, but at that point, I don't think we had a standard diet, so they could have had anything in them. But T told us that it reminded her of coffee clutches, and people just sitting around shooting the breeze, and having not saying anything, not communicating in a way that's meaningful and purposeful, because the next level they don't have that kind of communication, because they communicate with their minds, and that kind of communication would be static in the next level. If you were in a laboratory and your first task was to observe the laboratory and its function, which might be the way, well, I believe will be the way everybody starts off, to have some kind of observational experience first. And Tiendo gave us examples of that, where they had some new members to the labs, the fiber lab, which was the laundry, the yeast lab, which was the bakery, the nutrition lab, which was the kitchen where the meals were cooked, which was different from where the bakery was when we had a spacecraft, a human, we called the house a craft, even though it had no paraphernalia to decorate it, to make it look like it. There were no pictures or anything of space. It looked like a normal craft, because Tiendo wanted it to look normal, in particular because if the realtor came to visit, because we didn't own these houses, if they came to check up on us, or the owner came for some reason to check up on what was going on, or a workman came in to fix the refrigerator, or whatever needed to be done, they didn't want it to look weird, and we all would hide in closets when that would happen. And just a few individuals were assigned to greet those people, the individuals that initially rented the property, which a lot of times was Lagodi, and a time or two was me, and with like Chekodi. But most of the time it was Lagodi and a Czech partner like Junodi, maybe. I'm not sure who. But anyway, so the craft didn't look like that. So basically but they set up the structure of the way we acted and behaved the way it would be like in a spacecraft, where you would have assigned tasks, and then you would have times where you didn't have any assignments, and you could also find things to do during those times that you didn't have assignments, that were like open-ended assignments. And I don't know if they have that in the next level. I imagine they probably have something like that, and that might be like studying things. Like studying the kind of things that are happening in the labs. Maybe they have computers that you can sit at and learn about how to do things, regarding the Earth, if that's what you're interested in. Tiendo did say that when we got to the next level, we would have opportunities to go into different departments in the next level. Not everybody doesn't go into the same department. Now, I don't know when that takes place. If first they reap the harvest, the full harvest from the graduation, because I know one of the tasks is to work with headquarters. Tiendo said they were from headquarters, and they also said that they felt most attracted to the constellation Orion, and and so it's no secret that humans and the so-called good space aliens are saying that the bad space aliens and the Greys come from Orion. Interesting, right? Because the Luciferians are all building up the facsimile case to make against the truth of the next level and the truth of who their representatives are incarnate on Earth, and what they have to say and what they have to teach, and the reality in terms of their physicality, and that they created everything in the universe, and that humans are not gods in any respect, and the space aliens are not gods in any respect, even though the space aliens are souls that were at one time considered to be sons of God in the context of offspring, like new members, or children. It's not the same context as the way Jesus was a son of God, although Jesus was a son to his older member, his father, because it was his father, T, that birthed him into the next level. But he was not a elementary student in the next level. I believe he was Michael the Archangel, so he was a captain of angels. So he was a full-time adult member of the next level, an older member in the next level, even before this task. Maybe even before the Jesus task, or maybe the Jesus task brought him to the next step for him, which might have been a captain of angels, to where an angel might be an adult member of the next level. But an angel, I don't know if an angel could be an infant member of the next level, because that's the infant level of the next level, I believe, is like the Watchers, like Enoch talked about, and are the offspring of the children of God that were adopted, but they fell away, or they were working in the next level, but they didn't graduate. And Doe did say that all those individuals that had the capacity to graduate from a number of planets in the universe or in this galaxy, I don't know, he didn't specify where they were from exactly, but different planets, were brought to the Earth to have the opportunity to choose to join the program of laying down their existing vehicles, or if they were just souls. I don't know if all the ones that Doe was talking about had the same equivalent kind of elementary tasks like Watchers on their planets where they were working for the next level. They might have been, and the next level had a way, because they were working for the next level, even though the way you work for the next level isn't necessarily with constant observation that's obvious. Because the next level, well, I shouldn't say why because, but since they're infant members of the next level, offspring of God, children of God, working in a next level environment, in a degree of outer space, maybe even a degree of deep space. I think it would be a degree of deep space, because that's why Doe was calling them space aliens, and also, well, I might be wrong about that, because I don't know that they ever got to work in deep space. But I don't know where deep space starts and where near space starts, where Doe said that the space aliens were now restricted to. Anyway, so maybe I got too far off the track, but I think some of it's potentially decent, or well, I believe from T and Doe's mind. I'm trying to say when it's not, when it is. I always try to say when it is for sure, and then when I say that it might be this, it might be that, now you're seeing me trying to interpret things that T and Doe said. They said it in one sentence, and I'm trying to say a little bit about what they didn't say, which I don't think is a problem, as long as I am specifying that they didn't say it, because it tells the listener that what was not said. So then, so it's not like I'm just not remembering everything, because if I remember it, if I don't remember it, well, you know what I'm saying probably. Anyway, so it could all be of value, I think. But of course, I've got to draw the line in places so that I don't end up getting off track from what T and Doe were teaching. And that's what I just kind of corrected myself there, or actually the next level corrected me. I don't know which way it worked. It's the same thing. If it's the next level mind that corrected me, that's all that matters. Doesn't matter who it comes through, even though it all originates with our older members. The corrections. Not everything I say doesn't originate with my older member. So that can be taken out of context big time. That was all stemming from the 7th, right? And I got into then talking about the labs and the departments and all that. So I'll just move on from there. And I'll move to the next word here. Of course, angel means messenger. It's the angel, by implication, a pastor. Angel, a messenger, actually. When it says by implication, I don't take it verbatim. Because that's like the translator saying, it's like me, saying that this implies this and that. And, you know, a pastor, I guess, could be a messenger, but it's, you know, treading on thin soil. I mean, we don't really like listening to Pastor Murray, Arnold Murray, I think was his name, even though he recognized that he was off track. And Soroti even mentioned him, I believe, in his exit video. And also, we liked listening to Kenneth Copeland until he started talking about how, you know, the Lord wants you to be successful and have riches and, you know, serve the Lord with those riches and, you know, your testimony because you got rich and your testimony to how the Lord blessed you. That's what made you rich. When he started getting into that direction, you know, though at one point said that the Lord wants you to have nice things, but he doesn't want you to want them. Interesting, right? Because he wants you to want his mind, a relationship with him, to bond with him. And him isn't gender related for all those that take offense by the word him, which I understand is, you know, many of those in female vehicles can easily take offense with the way him was distorted and made into that they were superior to females, to hers. And though at one point was trying to think of a word that was a combination of him and her, by the way. But he felt it was kind of awkward, and he decided that if someone was having a problem with him, they need to get over it. Just like we need to overcome gender differences and sexual differences. I mean, not sexual differences, sex at all. Any sexuality needed to be overcome. So there was no preference for, you know, LGBTQ or, you know, as one being, or straight, if you want to put it in there, you should put them in there too. The straights should have a letter too. Even though I understand why they set themselves apart, but that needs to be overcome too to become a member of the next level. But, you know, when that happens is according to each grade in school that a human is going through. And the main thing is that they connect with the next level and recognize Ti and Do as being representatives from the next level and have the intention of and seek their will and stand for them, stand up for them when somebody's talking down about them or talking about them in a way that's not accurate from what we learn about them when we study everything they said. And in that way, our service will help us also separate from the human kingdom and all the behaviors and ways of the human kingdom, because with that mind comes their behaviors that we then feel like we want to and we end up getting more in their mind. It gives us more strength to discard the human behaviors and ways, although we'll continue to be attacked by it. And but if we're attacked and we fall from our standard that we're trying to reach, then it's necessary, absolutely part of the next level, to pick up and keep on going. Don't feel like if you fell that you can never recover. Even if you fall repeatedly over a length of time, and then one day you just wish you could recover, then you can recover. Just ask the next level to help you and get back on the program to the degree that you want to. It's up to you. Nobody's held back from the next level. It's not like in the human kingdom where you gotta there's only certain times where you can move up. Well, that is true in the next level. Tiendo said in the very beginning that this was a time for all life forms to move up. However that happens in the lower life forms, down to the amoebas and all that. They all have a form of moving up and gravitating towards the creators of everything, the next level. Tiendo and crew, the chief of chiefs, ultimately, who Tiendo talked about as the biggest, or the greatest, or the most experienced, or the goodest member of the next level, that we would not understand anything about until we become a member of the next level, and then we will understand more about where that individual came from. That boggles the mind, right? Does mine, that's for sure. But I just accept it for that, and I don't need to go any further. And then all of a sudden, the Luciferians will come in and say, well, if you don't understand where he came from, how can you believe in him? Well, because you believe in his representatives that are closer to us, that are talking more our language and our culture and understanding what we go through. That's how we can believe in him. Because if we can understand them and we can see how greatly advanced they are over us, then we can understand that what they say is true and that we will understand more about the Chief of Chiefs. But it's like trying to understand everything that the president goes through without, this is my analogy, Tiendo didn't give this analogy, but you've never even lived in a city, for instance. You've always lived out in the woods, with a small group of people, okay, and you didn't even have electricity, and you're trying to understand the job and where the president got his job and all that, It's like it's not really in your capacity to understand it at that point. And I think it's a much bigger gap between the human kingdom and even the youngest member of the next level, which Jesus talked about as greater than the greatest human. He said John the Baptist was the greatest human, and that even the least in the kingdom of heaven was greater than John the Baptist. So that should tell you something about how that there's progression in the next level as well. It doesn't stop. And there's different vehicles that you graduate to, and even you could have a vehicle that, you could have more than one vehicle actually. Doe said that T had advanced to where she didn't need to put her vehicle in a closet. She could just, some of her mind could just leave that vehicle, and like Doe said, he put his vehicle in a closet before he came here to do this task. And so that makes you think, oh, I wonder if he was saving that vehicle to bring it back, like in Revelation 19 talks about, or as a verse in the white horse, and not the white horse, the white cloud, talked about in Revelation 14, which I believe is depicting the same event. Well, maybe not. Actually, I think the white cloud was the event of the Hale-Bopp comet coming, with T sitting on that cloud, because it was one that was like the Son of Man. I just realized that. I think I saw that before, and I think I wrote it in my book that way, but it just like dawned on me in a greater way, I think, that might be what that translates to be. So sounded, we talked about as a vibration, as a radio wave. I was getting back to that. And how T and Do said that they communicated with us from a distance through radio waves. And so this sounding, as it seems like with all prophecy, has its physical manifestations and its frequency manifestations. And it can be multiple manifestations. So I tied them into the arrival of the next level through the spacecrafts as being the fifth angel sounding. And then the woe that came after that, I think, would be Comet Kohoutek. Because of the ominous nature of T and Do awakening and coming public, which was then the sixth sounding. Because I might not have that right. I'm still like searching for that, the best depiction of the first woe. But I think it's good enough. That's the idea I just got in my head. That's good enough to think of that as Kohoutek. Because then, when they came public for the first time, in the biggest way, because they were going public even during their awakening, they were dropping cards saying the two witnesses were here, and they were trying to talk to Billy Graham, and a number of people were traveling that they gave an interview to Brad Steiger and Hayden Hughes and Dan Garcia in their facility that they had in Oklahoma City. And so, where the book came from, UFO Missionaries Extraordinary. So, I mean, that was also going public. So that's part of their prophecy period. But when they first did their first private meetings, that was, to me, when those radio waves are going to be going out. The sound waves will be going out through their voice. I guess sound waves are radio waves, or one different part of the spectrum. I don't know if human technicians, electronic technicians would see it that way, but I'm kind of like putting that together as because our vocal cords are reverberating, right? So it's creating a vibration that's coming out through our breath. And it's interesting that breath and spirit and mind and the word that Jesus represented and that was in Genesis, was made flesh, are all and when Adam became a soul was when the breath of life was breathed into his nostrils. And those nostrils actually took that breath right to his brain, as they talk about in the science. That oxygen doesn't go to the lungs, goes right to the brain, I believe. Maybe it goes to the lungs also, or I don't know exactly. But and T and Do taught us when we were walking for exercise, we would walk around when we lived in remote areas especially, but sometimes in suburban areas, we would walk as twos, and we looked kind of the same, so as long as we weren't out there at the same time as everybody else, it wasn't a problem, I think. But we didn't do that often. But anyway, when we would do that, we would breathe through our nose. And then we would exhale through our mouth. And we would swing our arms really wide so that we'd have that motion, and we would take a fast stride. We weren't running, but it would be a fast-paced walk. And we would do that as partnerships. Boy, I can feel, my head got a little lightheaded when I took that deep breath through my nose. So, it's probably a good thing to do. Especially if you're trying to breathe in the mind of the next level, which I don't know if we can do that when they're not physically with us. But I imagine the way we do it when they're not physically with us, for sure, is by reading everything they said and listening to everything they said in the tapes and watching everything they said with our eyes, because our eyes take in things too. Like Jesus said, the light of the body comes through the through the eyes, and if you make your eye, and I guess he's talking about what was considered to be the third eye, which Tiendo talked about more. They didn't talk about it as the third eye. Well, I think they made reference to it, but they talked about the glands, the pineal gland that's in the top of the head, and then the other gland, I forgot which one it is, that's right behind the forehead. And anyway, so that's the sounding. I know I'm kind of repeating myself from the last broadcast. So the seventh angel sounded. Now, I'm thinking that sounding started in the 1990s, where the sounding, the sixth angel sounding started with Tiendo's first wave. And the second wave was when the 1994 physical sounding, where we were walking around giving meetings and talking to people face to face. That's the biggest form of sounding that takes place. And so I don't know if that sounding is going to still happen by individuals that believe in all this. I'm not talking about just the scriptural parts, but everything about Tiendo. Actually go public and start holding public meetings again. It's not going to be that long, I don't think, before they're going to shut me down on the internet. And what I've said about that is that that's going to be my signal to start holding public meetings. And I hope I have the strength to go and do that when that happens, because I know I'm, walking on two roads right now, in the sense that I have a certain amount of things that I enjoy doing in the human kingdom. Like I enjoy playing music, and I play with several bands, but I will be asking the next level hard to help me have the strength to break away from that in order to, and maybe some of those individuals might want to come on the road with me, and maybe we'll do it as a band. So the next level may maybe help me, break away from my habit or addiction to the enjoyment I get from playing music. I've already seen to where I didn't care if I was playing music or not. I did get to that point at one point, and I did recognize that if I never played the flute again, I would still be happy. It would be like, never eating sugar again, which I conquered that. Even though, I might have something once in a while now. I haven't had it for many months now. And I used to crave it, but now I found other things that can satisfy that craving that are like nut butter. It has enough sweetness to it that it satisfies that craving to me. And I guess if I had something with a little honey, that wouldn't be out of the question, or a little maple syrup. That's what I would use more of, or even a refined sugar. But as long as I kept it really low, I think I might be okay. Like once in a while, I take a little thing for my, lozenge for my breath. That's sweet, and so I haven't seen a negative from that. But I do that. I don't do that every day, and I don't do it even maybe a couple times a week. Anyway, so a little off the track there, but potentially a value. And I think what I would be doing if I did that would be heading for the Southwest. And not necessarily to lay my body down, but maybe, I don't know. Maybe to circulate around and end up back where I am now, or circle around again and come back, keep on doing circles until I'm bumped off, if that's what happens. Because when I'm face to face with people that hate this information, any of us that are going to be doing that, we're going to be in harm's way. Because you can see the way people are going off in different directions according to their programming. It's because in their heads, if they have already justified that somebody is evil, like I saw an article the other day that was saying that people that were anti-vaxxers, anti-vaccinations, in any form, should be lynched. So, I am kind of an anti-vaxxer at this point. Not that I'm against all vaccinations for all people, but I'm certainly against, I don't know how T&O would think about this, but I have a sense that they're not too fond about what the medical community is doing. And I got a big dose of that when Doe took us off of all those things, and he started having us improve our health by using the Transfiguration diet, which was a mucusless diet. And you can go look that up and search for that book. I think everybody should, that believes in T&O, should get that book. Because when they come down with a disease or a cold or anything, or if they feel like, they want to try to cleanse their body, that would be the way to start. I'm not saying that they would have to stick to that 100%, because Doe didn't give it, I believe, as instruction for the future. Although you can read it and see what he said about it. He did say in it that it's a way to counteract all disease and bring the most health to the physical body. So the more we can gravitate to that diet, the better. But there were certain things that I'm allergic to that were in that diet, like white potatoes, which I'm not sure I'm allergic to them cooked. I'm certainly allergic to them raw, even though raw potatoes, we did experiment with raw potatoes once in the classroom. And I don't know if I think I did maybe have a little allergic reaction. It wasn't a severe reaction to them, but I did have reactions, And anyway, so he changed it. And they did say, according to Peter, who's trying that Transfiguration diet, he told me that they also talked about in the next page, the sweet potatoes is a good substitute. And I'm eating a lot of sweet potatoes now, instead of any white potatoes. But let's say you're someplace where you can't get anything. You can't get those things. Well, then you're going to have to try to find something that you can use to give you the kind of nutrition that, there's going to have to be some carbohydrates in your diet. You can get them from avocados, which weren't, I don't think, in the Transfiguration diet. Maybe they were, but they were added later, big time. And tahini was added big time, and we ate as a meal. We had bananas and tahini. That was a meal, like a breakfast. I think it was even a lunch, because actually we started the day with a lot of times with a vegetable juice and wheatgrass juice for a period of time that we were growing ourselves. Not everything. We were growing sprouts ourselves. We were sprouting and then blending them as a drink. We also did that for a lunch, a green drink that we made out of sprouts and carrots and apple. And we usually added apple because it helped make those bitter vegetables sweet, a little sweeter to the palate, so it was a little easier to tolerate. And we used Rejuvelac, which was made from fermented wheat berries, wheat seeds that were soaked to a certain point to where they started to ferment, but you didn't want to go too far, otherwise they became like kind of putrefied. But we used the Rejuvelac as the liquid in those green drinks. So they were pretty potent drinks. And anyway, as a cleanser, but we didn't stay on any of these one routines for very long, maybe weeks. We did the Burroughs cleanser, which was for 39 days, and I think T and Doe did it, well, no, Doe and crew did it after I left, after they were finished with all the public meetings and everything, and which was after I left. No, I mean, the meetings all ended before I left, but so they did the Burroughs cleanser, but after all that, of course. And that consisted of a tablespoon, an ounce of maple syrup, grade B, like the darkest, has the most minerals in it, and an ounce of that, and then an ounce of lemon juice, organic, preferably, lemon juice, fresh, of course, as fresh as you can make it. With the pulp. We didn't have the seeds. The seeds weren't put into it. And then 8 ounces of water, so made a 10-ounce drink. And then for those that needed more help to keep their weight on, they needed more. Doe said that they could add more maple. And we did that for 39 days. And the only thing we added with that was water. We could drink all the water we wanted with that. And it was kind of sickening towards the end of that each day. But at the beginning of each day, it was pleasant. It was enjoyable to have those drinks throughout the day. And oh yeah, and a pinch of cayenne pepper was part of that drink as well. And I've been using the cayenne pepper as a supplement for my Lyme's disease, and it seems to be working really well. And you can ask me about that formula if you want, some of the supplements I'm using from the Transfiguration Diet before you actually get that book. I'm going to try to have that book printed so that I can put it in digital format and I can give it to somebody or send it to somebody digitally. So, so the sounding, so now it's and that sounding. Now, notice this is taking place after the two witnesses have left, which I've talked about that before. And saying, after the first woe is past, so the second woe is past. So if that was Doe and the Hale-Bopp Comet and everything Heaven's Gate taught and their departure, all the students and all the book that was written from within the throne, from within the throne, as it says in Revelation 5:1, then that's past. And so the third woe is coming, and the woes always come after the sounding. So they're addressing the woe coming, but they're saying the sound is coming first, and there's no place that I found where it said now this is the third woe. So I'm not sure. Well, what I believe when I was writing the book that the seventh sounding was the National Geographic's special that I got to be a part of. I was interviewed for. They came up to where I lived and took 3 hours of tape from me and then used a little tiny bit of it. But But I asked the producer and director, the woman that was doing the project as a freelance work for National Geographic, I asked her, I said, of all the things I said, if the only thing she used was one thing, I would be very happy with the interview. And I said what that was just making a suggestion, or bringing up the question, or stating, or letting me, or quoting me, or using that film, me saying this, that I believe that Tiendo were the second coming, or the Heaven's Gate was the second coming of Jesus, second coming of the kingdom of God. And she ended up including that with a little bit of other stuff, but I didn't care about anything else but that. And she did put that in there, actually in even the, I think even the, what do you call a little bit of footage that they put in as the introduction to the broadcast. She might have had it in there, or maybe I just saw it on like a byline that on the website when it was being broadcast, where it suggested that what if they were the second coming? Could they be the second coming? I forgot exactly the words they used. But then they also repeated it. They let me repeat it in the broadcast. So twice it was stated, and that went worldwide because it was an internet broadcast. And it was called Final Report, National Geographic Final Report, Heaven's Gate. And interesting that it said it was the final report, and the seventh is the final of all the three depictions of seven messengers bringing information and events. There's the seven angels that are sounding. That's the first series of seven. There's the seven openings of the seal on the book, which started with Doe in the Heaven's Gate book as the first opening, which that book included everything that T had said before that. So that was the first seal opening in Revelation 6:1 and 2. And then there were seven seals. So we're in the fourth one now. Because G.W. Bush and the 9/11 attack and the wars that came, he was given the power to wage war. So the next level withdrew the way that the next level was holding that back, because there's been hawks for a long time wanting to go to war for various reasons, and it's even thinking that it's part of Scripture that the war had to come, which is true, the War of Armageddon, right? So, which is both has its physical manifestations in the human kingdom and has its next level ramifications in the war in the heavens, which is a war for souls. And the war in the heavens isn't fought with guns and bullets and bombs and that kind of stuff. Because the next level, they don't need that, because souls aren't affected by that. Those things. If we lose our vehicle, if we're on track with T and Doe, then they just take that soul and save them in a box, or give them a task to do somewhere. Give them even a vehicle, depending on how many grades in school they had advanced during their incarnation. And give them another opportunity to serve and learn lessons from that service, and move on from there. So that's what happens with each of the seals. Each of the seals is also an affirmation period of time, so that where souls are giving their allegiance to T and Doe. And that was happening ever since they left. I didn't know about it until I started to reawaken. more. Because I never actually denied that T and Do were who they are, or that I believed in them. My problem was that I was giving into my vehicle's desires and the influences that were wanting me to be back in the human kingdom. And I was even being influenced to kind of join the New Age movement at the time, which was reflected in some of the songs I wrote at that time and the poems I wrote at that time, actually. In the early writings in 2000, 2001, and 2002, before I started going online to see if there was anybody talking about Heaven's Gate. That's when I ran into Carl Odie. Anyway, so Carl Odie, who had been working with Rick Odie to some degree before Rick Odie left, and then thereafter sending people CDs and tapes and talking to people online, and he's the one that got in touch with XF the first time, and so he was standing for T and Do then, and maybe he's standing for T and Do now. I just don't know about it. I know he's kind of against the way I'm standing for T and Do. At least he was. I hope he's gonna come out of that, because we need all that. We need all the people standing for T and Do full time that we can get. It's not like it's not that we need it, but we need it for ourselves. This is how we're going to learn our lessons, by standing up for them and talking about them, and then that's how we also change our behaviors. Everybody. I'm saying we is anybody that that knows this is the truth at this point, or is still just curious about it. And it's not. Doubts are natural to have, and but letting the doubts take us away from the information, that's where we potentially can fall. And doesn't mean that we can't recover from that fall, but it doesn't always happen. Sometimes we fall and we stay falling. And then when we stay fallen, we actually go against the next level, because that's what T and Do said. Because that's what Jesus taught too, that we can't have two masters. So, but fallen is a degree. It's not like, one mistake and you're fallen. But if you start talking about the next level against them and against their reality and saying what they're not, that's the ultimate falling, because now you're influencing others to have that frame of mind, and that means you're potentially stealing that soul away from what they can become if they follow in the footsteps of the next level teachings. And that's why I believe Jesus said that's the only unforgivable sin. It's unforgivable because once you get to that place, I think you've got so much of that misinformation mind in you that you've been taken over by the Luciferian space aliens. And they're not going to let you go. And you already think that, you've found your path, the ultimate path you think you found then. That then looks at the next level potentially as just another space race from outer space that just happens to have more technology than you currently have, but that you can actually use the humans to develop that technology in competition with them, or shoot them down, or shoot their asteroids that they send against us, or start a new Earth by what do they call that? The terraforming another planet, or starting to stimulate the birth of a son by maybe, shooting it with nuclear missiles or something, or, like maybe they're thinking of doing with Jupiter, or maybe with Saturn, with that spacecraft that's going into Saturn rings right now, but it's going to end up going into Saturn. It might have nuclear material on it that's fissionable. I don't know. That could actually be made into an explosion. I mean, they did see some explosions on Jupiter that they took pictures of. And they did shoot the comet, Tempel 1. But I don't know if that was with a nuclear warhead or not. I don't know if any of them have nuclear warheads on them, but I wouldn't doubt it. I know they have the capacity to do it. Well, I'm pretty sure they have the capacity to do it. I guess it would take a certain amount of charge and a certain amount of casing to survive a really, really hot atmosphere or something like that. But anyway, so the next level may have ways of protecting their planets from that kind of thing. I know they can if they want to. And now they're talking about sending something into the sun. Humans are out of control, and they're in the control of the space aliens. They'd be the only ones that are giving humans those ideas. I mean, they got those. That's not true exactly, I guess, because with the satellite telescopes that they've had trained on the sun, they've seen objects go into the sun. They saw the comet Ison go into the sun and come out the other side. And it came out in a different spot than it was projected to come out by the trajectory that it went as it was approaching the sun. And then it was shown to have shown to be like 7 objects flying in a wing formation. And that's what it looked like in a different wing formation of 3 objects before it went into the sun. I mean, there's so much evidence of the next level. And then the facsimiles that are created by the human kingdom and the Luciferian space aliens through the human kingdom, teaching humans, giving humans these ideas of how to manifest that. When they can also take it from what they see the next level doing. They're sending a comet into the sun. Well, maybe we should do that. Maybe what would happen if we sent something into the sun? We can record it for as long as it can and transmit it back. I don't know. But, so the sounding, so after the sounding, or it might be also, because Anne can also say also, the 7th angel sounded, also were since they're saying were, it makes me think that this isn't also, would just say also great voices. But since there's a were in there, and were means generate, that gives me the impression that they're going to generate great voices. Now, voices is the word disclosure. So that's like saying that information is going to be provided. Awakening, understandings are going to be provided. And I know people are going to find fault with me for saying this, but I mean, these broadcasts are the result of my trying to pull on Tiando's mind, together with what was written by Jesus in these prophecies, not by Jesus, but, well, yeah, by Jesus, I believe, not Jesus, no, actually, no, not the vehicle that was named Jesus, by the older member, Do, who was described in these Revelation prophecies, which I probably need to go through that at some point, with the white hair and white head and white hair like snow, and the apple white horse vehicle, and making it into a virgin vehicle, recovering his virginity for Chrysalis' sake, as Doe taught we were all doing. Anyway, to make us into the bride, which applies to everybody right now. Anybody that believes in this, it would apply to. They can talk to Doe. Doe might let you know that he hears you in a dream or multiple dreams. You can't count on him. If somebody comes to you in a dream and tells you new information, don't believe it. Don't believe it. I didn't get new. Well, don't count on it 100%. If it makes sense to you and it feels like it's a lesson for you personally in your behavior, then you can take it to heart. And if that behavior matches what is taught by T and Doe that you're trying to aspire to, if Doe comes to you in a dream, or one of those individuals in the exit tapes comes to you in a dream, if you've watched those exit tapes, I think it's a good idea to do that, so that you see their face in your mind in a dream, and they're giving you something that pertains to, that you can check it with what was taught by T and Doe when they were here. Then you can put more stock in it, okay? But if it's telling you to do something or suggesting for you to do something, I'd be very, very suspicious of that. And I would ask T and Doe at that moment, is this you talking? Because, when in doubt, don't, was something that came from T and Doe. When in doubt, don't. And also take a chance on a positive. So taking a chance on a positive came from T and Doe's mind. And so, let's say somebody's talking about something about UFOs, and you want to say something about UFOs in relationship to T and Doe. Well, that might be a time to take a chance on a positive. And you might say something, and the person might just, like, their eyes might roll up in their head, or they might say, that sounds like cultish or something, But you might lead up to it. You might not jump right into the T and Doe, because you might try to find out whether they even have a place in their head for a UFO being like from the kingdom of God, or that Jesus was on a UFO. Because that's a way to move into it, because you don't want to throw your pearls before individuals that might end up having a swine behavior towards you. So the disclosures are coming, but it says the disclosures are in heaven. There were great voices in heaven. Now, this form of heaven is in place, time, or state. So voices are in the state of heaven, or in the state of, or in the timing of heaven, or in the place of the heavens, which could be speaking of the first heaven, which would include the near space, which the internet is being broadcast in the near heaven. And I'm broadcasting this right now into the near heaven when I end up putting it on YouTube. And there's another form of this being said in Revelation chapter 14. Let me jump over there quick. Where it said, and I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people, which is what John was told he was going to have to do. Now, I'm not saying I'm John, okay? You need to go back and please go back to my, not need to, but please go back to my previous broadcasts. You're going to have to listen to a number of them. When I started doing these broadcasts with the 7 seals, and listen to those before you jump to the conclusion that I'm saying that I'm John, the soul that was John. I can't say that it's not possible, okay? But I didn't really think so when I wrote my book, and even so, it doesn't make any difference, because the next level isn't. Members of the next level do not feel elevated by who they were, and Doe made that very, very clear. That his being the same individual that was in the vehicle named Jesus didn't elevate him in his mind. Because what he said from the beginning was that if I hadn't grown when I was incarnate from Jesus, then I'm not very good member of the next level. He didn't actually say it that way. The way he said it was that that members of the next level, even older members of the next level, are growing constantly. They're seeking new opportunities, new tasks for their older members so that they can grow more and more and more. And so they don't want to think of themselves as where they were at when they were incarnate as Jesus, because that would be like dragging themselves back into a behavior level or an informational level or understanding level or a task level that they had outgrown. Not that Jesus' behavior was outgrown for me. No, Jesus, I'm looking up to that behavior tremendously. I'm not even close to that behavior. I'm not even necessarily at the infant level. And it remains to be seen what the next level does with my soul when I leave this task. There's no guarantees that I can still fall more than I fell already. But maybe I've recovered some of that, but not entirely, I don't think. So I might just be this soul might just be put in a box and saved for a future opportunity to be brought back when I can have a new opportunity to take over a human vehicle. So, but this verse here is saying that there's another angel flying in the midst of heaven. So it's said in a different way. The next level said things in a different way a lot of times through the book of Revelations. I believe basically to keep the truth hidden, so that the Luciferian fallen angels couldn't massacre it, because they wouldn't know the truth. They couldn't create the facsimile thinking to it. They just didn't know what to do with it. So if you see humans interpreting this, they're going to interpret it. They're not going to be able to interpret it to now. Well, some may now, okay, because once that information is in the environment brought by the older members, then it's fair game for anybody to pull on. So if the Luciferians can get somebody to think it, then they can make it into misinformation. I'm not going to give an example of it right now, but the ye are gods thing is a big example of that, to where they took that thing that Jesus said, as to mean that all humans are gods, and it's just they're recognizing it. That's lacking, which I know there's people teaching that in the New Age community. in different forms. You know, they have different variations of that. The I am is a part of that mindset, I believe. So, but interesting here, it says here that saying with a loud voice, fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven and earth, and the sea and the fountains of water. Now, see, that's directly in relationship to the next verse is going to say, and the nations are angry that thy wrath is come, and the time of the dead that shall be judged, and thou shalt. And the nations, Revelations 11, which one is this? 18, sort of mimics that, not mimics it, but parallels that by saying, and the nations were angry, and thy wrath is come, in the time of the dead, that they should be judged, and that thou shouldest give reward, and them that fear thy name, small and great, and shouldest destroy them which destroy the earth. Which I have a lot to say about that when I get to that verse, but for now I'm just going to say that they're saying that the kingdoms of the world become our Lord and his Christ, and they reign for eons. The word ever is actually properly an age. They reign for an age, or ages and ages. So, or maybe just 2 ages. Age, which would be the 2,000 years. No, it said they would reign for age and an age, which in those mind, I believe an age was 2,000 years. So that would be like saying 4,000 years. There would be, that the Luciferian space aliens would be locked up. Or the new, there might be some new Luciferian space aliens, because they're going to recycle after 1,000 years from now. It said in prophecy that they were going to be recycled into the lake of fire. So this would be saying then that 4,000 years at some point from this point will be how long that the next level will be in control of everything that happens on the planet, rather than releasing the Luciferian space aliens to start to take over the human kingdom, to start the experiment again. So that's what I think that means. And I'm just going to go a little bit into this 24 elders, because of the way that Tien Do and Soroti wrote about the 24 elders, which I'm going to go into let's see, where was that? Right here was one. Let's see. Oh no, I don't think that's the one. Oh yes, it was. Let's see. Oh brother, I'm sorry. Let's go to the one where Do talked in session 5 of the Beyond Human series. The other part was where Sorority said the same thing. I mean, we've got to stop doing this and this and this, and there's no room for, this is Do talking, and there's no room for sensuality, for indulgences, and this and that. It just doesn't work. It doesn't fit in with the overcoming. And I told you that wow, within a very short time, our numbers, well, you know what? I should put this on the screen. I can do that. And yet to me, and to T, and I don't say this to try to just build up or elevate, because I'm not in that business, the members of this classroom, that couple of dozen individuals, they're significant. They're beautiful. They're attempting with all of their might to be nothing but vessels of the kingdom of heaven. They don't want any separateness. They don't want thoughts of their own. They want to fill that soul, that pillowcase we've talked about, only with the mind that comes from, that's the soul, right? Only with the mind that comes from the kingdom of heaven, and to quickly stay and remain and improve in the business of aborting everything that comes from other sources, from any other source. Okay, so now I happen to be one of the individuals that was the helper to Doe on this broadcast of session 5. And I happen to be one of those couple of dozen individuals that was talked about. And I can't deny that. I don't want to deny that. But I fell from that position. I had that capacity to graduate with them, and I fell. What I learned was that from Carlin, that he heard Doe talk about, was that T removed some of the recognition of them, of the next level, from me. See, what Doe didn't know at the time was what I said to T. When I screamed to T to have a harder task and to do a task like Doe has, I wanted to do. When I was given permission by Doe to talk to T. And so that's what I asked for, and I kind of demanded it. I said, give it to me. As if I had learned all my lessons already, and I hadn't. Because the reason that was withdrawn from me was because, according to Carlin, was because that Doe said, was because I was tardy in my lessons, or I had not learned. I had been permissive of my a certain amount of sexuality in my head. That's why she removed the recognition. And because I didn't have that recognition as much as I had before, my influence took over my vehicle. And the soul that was Soyoti was kicked out or forced away, because the oil and water don't mix. So that the mind that was from the next level that had accumulated in my soul withdrew from the vehicle. Remember, Jesus said that it could be taken away from you? So a certain amount was taken away from me. But I think it wasn't all taken away from me, because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to reawaken and grow to want to be in service and want to give my all again and lose my vehicle in service. Even though it's either not appropriate or I don't have the strength to lay it down at this time. I don't know what it is. I just know that I'm seeking my next steps from Doe, and I know they're not going to be easy going forward. Even though he's making it he's treating me as gently as he can, I guess probably because I'm so tender. in my strength that if he took me any faster, I think he knows that he'd probably lose me. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe I could survive it. I don't know. But there are individuals that I know that want my book. That some are atheists, some are New Agers, some are that I have interfaced with all these years. So maybe the next level is working with them to help them take their next steps. Because the next level takes my negative. See, it was a negative for me to leave, but it didn't have to remain a negative. The next level took my negative of not graduating with my class and moving on to my next task in the next level, and they made a positive out of it by helping me reawaken through the dreams and the ideas and the thoughts and the energy and the capacity to retain it enough and to refer back to what I learned while I was in the classroom, so that I can help maybe be of service to the next level by bringing this information to others. If I didn't rise to that occasion, they would have found somebody else to do it. The next level wasn't held. They weren't waiting on me to do it, and maybe that individual would have been John. In the past. Or maybe they would have been somebody else that was a disciple 2,000 years ago that when they came back and took a new vehicle, didn't graduate with their class. I don't know. I don't know what soul was in Carlin. I don't know what soul. Maybe it was Peter. Maybe it was, who knows who it was. Maybe it was, one of the 70. Or maybe one of the 24, that maybe Andodi. If Andodi, but Andodi's still around. Maybe Dan Sodi. I don't know if Dan Sodi left to, I don't know if the next level could bring some, Echoedy, or one of the individuals that dropped out long ago and then died. That soul might have still been around, and the next level might have said, go take another vehicle in 1994. And that soul could have been one of the 70 or one of the 12 or one of the 24 or going back into the Moses camp. So we don't know any of that. Well, it doesn't really matter. It really doesn't matter. It's just an ego trip that would make that into a big deal. But the way the next level works is they take advantage of every situation. So that's what they're doing now. And they all did fall on their faces. That's basically laying down their body, laying down their human vehicles. They did that in a number of ways. And worshiping means giving service to T, God, the next level, the level above human. Tiendo, those that are sitting on the throne. That's what this means when it says God at this point. It's worshiping, it's serving Tiendo and the entire next level. So I'm going to end the broadcast, and I'm actually going to go talk to some Christians about Lyme's disease and the success I had with it on the Transfiguration diet. And maybe I'll get to say a little bit about Tiendo when I'm there. But I know it could be very hard for some of them to take, so I'm going to take their lead for it. So good night, or good afternoon.